my question would be the topic of creativity. What would you say? Because my inspiration I've taken from your awareness and consciousness podcast. Many of the topics you venture into different topics and you structure it and break it down in a sequence it in such a way that it it kind of winds back and just touches the initial topic what you have. It goes into the one large circle or something and it comes to the thing like you have this aha sort of a moment. So like how's your experience in terms of like when you get into this kind of creative flow and like structure your content? I can learn something from you.
How do I structure the content when I do a talk or a podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Generally, it begins with inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And inspiration is emotional. So the more in touch with your, and this goes to creativity. Creativity begins with inspiration. Inspiration is emotional. You have to feel your emotions. And the more gratitude you feel, the more present you are. Okay. And have you done the Self-Mastery 2 course?
Yes.
Okay. Then in there, I have a meditation prayer. You're breathing with your heart and your body to the sun above.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe a sun, heart, sun breathing, or even or the sun and the earth in your body, right? And put you in a not just a state of really heart-centered love and gratitude, but expanding love and bliss. Okay, so you set the environment to be in this state of love.
Yes.
Okay? And then the more that you expand that, you focus on that state of love and expand it outward. Now, love, gratitude, you're in the whole field of it. Okay? Now, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up as kind of a radio transmitter frequency and says, I'm on the frequency of love. And I'm transmitting on the frequency of love, and I'm connected to the sun, earth. I'm receiving on the frequency of love.
Yeah.
Okay? And then what you create from there will have a beauty of love to it. If you put yourself in the state of anxiety, fear, oh, it's a desperate moment, I'm in trouble, you're transmitting on a frequency of fear. You'll be looking at the world through fearful eyes. You'll be receiving messages of fear because that's the frequency you're tuned to. Okay? Then you'll feel like anything I create, oh, it's not enough, it won't be good enough. You will feel that way about anything that comes. Okay? And you close down the narrow of the brain and you start functioning from this primal fight or flight part of the brain that doesn't have any creativity. Or not, it doesn't have, it has some, but not as much. It's like, what do I need to do to survive? And all will see options into that. What do I need to do so that people will like it and I won't get criticized? Because, oh my God, I'm afraid to death of being criticized or judged. Right? And so we're like, what do other people think? What do they want? And we'll limit the solutions to those kinds of options. Right? The fear imagining what other people will approve of and trying to create through the idea of them being judgmental, and within that judgmental receiving, I have to create something. Well, you come up with something very tight that doesn't feel good. All right. So imagine creating from there in that paradigm. Okay, if you're in a state of gratitude, the world has many, many things that it's giving us, has given us, and therefore will give us. It's the frame. It's giving us beauty with love. There's enough, there's plenty, there's more. Okay. So I'm inspired by love that's empowered with an expansive consciousness that connects me to all creation. Okay. And then I get in touch with what's needed. What's needed here? Right here, you want to know about creativity. Okay. And your need to know, I'm thinking, so what do? I go to gratitude, I go to love, I go to connection, expanding consciousness. I feel that, and then I share that with you. This is how I set the environment to create. All right. And now I need to deliver to you from this state, this energy. I need to deliver to you an understanding that this is the environment I set up. So I tell you about it. And I'm like, I need to deliver a story, a message to you. So with love, then something comes. Inspiration comes. I'm like, how do I satisfy that need? Your question. So then I put a seed of need in there. I need to do this with love. Connected to you, delivering you something. All right. And then I leave it to the mind to start to organize. Okay, this is the essential message. What's a story I can give it as an example? Why is that story good? What's another metaphor I can explain this with? How do I convey it with an actionable step? How do I give somebody an actionable step to, like, they can go do this for themselves? Or here's an experience they've had. What if they looked at it this way? Like, what do they know that I can draw a metaphor to, right? Then I'm like, I take this state of love and I'm like, I leave it to my mind. I give my mind the mission, this need. Mind is now filled with love. I need to do this. And what is the mind? The mind is like a computer. I'm like, okay, mind, deliver this message. And the mind goes, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. No, that one doesn't work because that one doesn't work because of that. Was like, oh, this is good, but we need to tweak it this way. And we need to cover up that exception. It's like, and so the mind starts doing this. It starts solving the problem for me.
Exactly.
It gives me all this information of all these options and go, but if we do this, they'll think of this exception, they'll react this way. So we need to cover their objection to this. How do we go around that? The computer of the mind will figure it out. If I have the intent and the need and the love as a foundation. I let the mind dream up a solution, organize it of examples and the message. Right? Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah. Miguel would train us. He taught us how to do that. And so when you teach, he's like, okay, you have your students there. Okay, start with a prayer. Right? Usually I don't start with a prayer, but I'll start internally with my own prayer meditation. I'm breathing, gratitude, love. I'm connected to the sun, the earth, big channel of light and love, broadcast it out. And then I feel the people in the room. And I'm like, okay, I feel what's needed. Or somebody asks a question and I hear what's needed, right? And then I know what's needed and the information comes, I say what the message is, broadcast it with love, and that consciousness deliver the message. And then he would, yeah, call us up in front of the group and out of the blue. You know, he's like, okay, your turn, right? Have people just share, right? And I'm like, what do you want me to do? He's like, oh, whatever you want. But then he was measuring to see, okay, who's connecting their heart, who's feeling the consciousness of the expanded universe, who's expanding their love and presence out to everybody. Okay, who's delivering a message of love with clarity, right? I was like, oh, okay. After fumbling sometimes, I'm like, okay, do it then. So, and I do it here in the conversations with you, and Shri, and Narwis, and Mike. Does that answer your question?
On follow-up on that question, so switching channels between, for say, like if a situation needs more analytical thinking part of our brain, and but like need to for that situation you need to use more of your your intellect in that way. But in different situation you might not need that intellect too much, because don't need to analyze, you need to use your emotional channel there. Sometimes switching between these two, like it's kind of a immediate switch. I cannot do that sometimes.
It's a start. It's sometimes what?
Yeah, that's what immediately I cannot switch more. I can, if I'm staying analytical, I can stay analytical longer, right? Yeah. And if I want to connect with emotional and connect with people, that kind of thing, sometimes it's analytical brain interface, like keeping the channels clean.
Right. Okay. So I remember when I was in college, yeah, the channels were slow to shift. And I remember like doing some physics problem or engineering problem and just like, I'm not getting it, you know? And then I'm like, okay, take a break, you know, and I could sit there beating my head against the paper, you know, trying different things, like trying to figure it out, you know, but after a while, it's like no return or diminishing returns. And I learned I need a break, right? So I'd go for a walk, go get something to eat, snack, right? Get some food, come back, sit down, open my book, look at the problem, click, there it is. Oh, like see it right away, right? Because I let the computer in my brain, like, here's the problem, I'm trying to force it, but I'm trying to do it with this prefrontal cortex with the attention in my intellect, right? Well, I went and got something to eat, went for a walk, looked around, and my brain then takes that information, puts it back into the subconscious, where it's got all sorts of different processing power, reworks it around in a way that I can see it, so that when I look at it with my front brain again, it goes, here it is. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I've learned different things at times. And like, at a certain point, I can push it, and then I have to, I like, it's not fit, doesn't work. Then I'm like, okay, I've done as much intellectual analysis on it as I can, step away. Another part of my brain has got to do the process, trust it. Okay. Another time, a lot of times, like when we're doing like in Mexico and Teos, like a lot of information comes when I'm in the shower. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go teach class, or we're going to go out for the day. What are we doing? I'm dreaming the day. I'm like, okay, we're doing this and this and this. Yeah. Right. But a lot of times then I take or it might start before we even get on the trip to Mexico. Then I take out my book and I'm writing notes. Okay, I want to cover this theme. 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 Okay, here's the themes. Right? And maybe outline, okay, this theme has these 4 or 5 elements to it. Okay. And this is what I do in a podcast. Like I get the idea, like, here's something I did with a client. Like, okay, let me break it down. But I'll outline it. But then I put myself in that state of consciousness, look at the item 1 of the outline, speak to it. Item 2 of the outline, speak to it. It's like, I know the concept and the example maybe I'll use, but then speak with the energy. So then I'm using both. Here's the organizational structure, but here's the energy to deliver it with. So yeah, learning to do both halves at the same time.
Yes.
Is usually developed because you use one half and develop it, and then you turn that off and you do the other half and you develop it, and then over time you start to be able to do them together. Okay, it's like juggling. It's like, okay, I got to learn to throw the ball up right with just one hand straight up and down. I learn it with the other hand straight up and down, straight up and down, straight up, like guitar. You aren't learning both hands at the same time. You're learning one hand, and then you're like, oh, but what's this hand doing? Your brain is learning one thing at a time. And once you can do this hand automatically and this hand automatically, you start doing together. Okay. So practice. Is that about right, Mike? Playing guitar? Yeah. Yeah. You can learn and train yourself where you're focusing your attention. And usually in the beginning, when you're the most basic things, it's just you can focus on one thing. With practice, you can focus on a couple things at once. Is this helping?
Yes.
So yeah, practice.